Good day, you guys. So we have a pretty exciting end to our week, don't we? We have followed through with the action that we were talking about last week in the markets and basically triggered a larger potential correction here on our intraday charts as well as our daily charts. So this was basically our main zone to get us going on some swing trades on the short side. And I'm going to start by taking a look at what's happening in the overall market here and what led us to that analysis for downside moves. So I'm going to come on over here, pull up, let's see, we'll start with the ES here. So here's our daily chart on the ES. And as you may recall from last week, what we were looking at was one wave up, a second wave up, and then the potential for this third move. So what we were looking for was a lot more overlap throughout most of this week. A lot of things still had potential to just kind of creep higher. So that was our discussion last Friday. Essentially, we were looking at pretty much most of the major index components were looking that way. So they all had that room to put in that extra swing on the upside, but we weren't expecting a strong move. We were expecting that it would have a lot more overlap from one bar to the next and really not do those really large daily bars. And that's exactly what we had happen. So really nice, predictable move here. And let me put on some retracement actions. You guys can see where we're at as far as fibs go. I'm gonna have to close down some of my extra charts here too. Got too much going on. All right, so on larger zones, I'm gonna add our Fibonacci retracement. Maybe. Ah, come on. It kind of got stuck up there. All right, I'll just throw on a different one. It has a mind of its own, doesn't it? It's like, oh, I'm just gonna go here and we'll just go here. So I'll break that down. And we'll bring this up. And what you can see on the ES is that we're right around that 61.8%. The Nasdaq had a bigger recovery. Nasdaq made it up to 76.4 zone. But we're still right at some good resistance levels. And you can tell these are good fib levels because of the reactions we've had at the previous level. So we're going to have a little bit of support here at the 50%. But what we were looking at last week is that many of the securities where we were seeing the same pattern happening intraday would then have an even bigger correction at this point coming out of this pattern. So that's why this has opened up the zone for swing trades on the downside, and it really triggered yesterday. I'm going to go ahead and flip over to our intraday charts here. So on the upside, what you'll see is there's a little bit of a 2T type of pattern forming here as we're on the 29th. And it was so strong on that secondary move that it took a smaller 2T on the intraday charts to really get that flipped and turned over. I tried this originally after the market opened here. It was the night of the 29th the market opened, but the way it pulled back, it was having a slower pullback. So I just went for support here, closed it out, and then used the 2T a little bit later as the guide for the continuation on the downside. Unfortunately, I missed that trigger. It was, middle of the night or something like that. But it did give the setup for going into continuation plays, which the main one that we saw yesterday was a nice two-wave, beautiful measured time development move intraday. So I'm going to go down to some smaller time frames, show you what we had going on here. So This was the first two T zone. So you can see there's where it hit the measured move. So notice that that momentum is really strong there. So what that means is that it needs to do something to kind of shift that momentum and help turn things over. So what it did was it tried a really steep, smaller 2T here. This is where I actually shorted up here. So we had that smaller 2T in there, and it had this little tilted correction in here. And this is really important because that's what we then saw happening on the bigger scale. So I'm going to kind of go down even smaller here. We're going to scroll on back here. So there was a little continuation set up in here just on the smaller time frames. But then notice this. See that correction there where we have basically an avalanche, but then it doesn't go far enough to give a measured move or anything. So then it goes and kind of doubles that zone. And that's where the true trigger is. Now, watch what happens when we go and we look at a larger chart. I am going to go and let's see, I'm going to copy this. Put this in a new window. I'm going to put this on, let's see, we'll start with a 3,000 tick here. That is not nearly enough. Well, you can kind of see it here. But I'm going to make this bigger. We'll go all the way up to 20. So check this out. Look at that pattern there. So this move here, this is all happening basically right here on that 20,000 tick. So when we were doing League of Traders Live yesterday, what we were looking for was two possibilities. One, it was trying to do a little bit of a megaphone here. So we were looking at, maybe that would go as like kind of a kneecap, like a really fast continuation, because sometimes you'll get the avalanches, they'll go like that, and then they'll do 1, 2, 3 coming out of it. The other possibility was if it went past the time development necessary for that, which would have been right here, then it would go and basically double this time distance and then give the trigger for a bigger continuation. And so it's the same pattern as we had up here, just playing out on a much bigger scale. So this unfortunately triggered like right smack at the close yesterday. I still took it, but I was sweating it a little bit. But the confidence level on this type of trade is very, very high because it is such a strong move. So let me show you what that was doing on the intraday charts. And this actually gave us two shots here on the intraday. So I tried it originally right in here. So we had a two-wave move up and it kind of did a third little push and started to turn over. So had some reversals in there, but it just wasn't getting the momentum. So it took me out and then gave me another setup here, right smack at the closing bell. So I'm gonna have to pull up the tick charts for this one. And show you this. So here you can see the first attempt over here. It had this nice two-wave move and then the extra flush and then shifted momentum, triggered short downside, but here's where it ran into trouble. So what happens at 1550 is that we get all the market on close orders coming through. And since the floor has been closed, we've seen way more reactions at that point. So what this did was it created basically a 2B, which ended up pulling this up here again. So another two waves up and then a 2T here, kind of a momentum reversal, tilted 2T momentum reversal. And then we saw more shorts triggering in over here. So this is where I started to basically build that position. But notice the time. Look at that. It is 15:59. So you are going right smack into the closing bell. And what we had after hours, though, before the main real close, was this really nice megalanche. So all of this here, from the trap and the momentum reversal, and then we kind of got a diamond up here, all of this is building up based upon that time development on the 20,000 tick chart. So very, very high probability that this would keep going. Now, we have to also look at a bigger time frame to put this all into perspective. So this bigger pattern here, I need to go back up to 20,000 here. And I'm going to add more days on here because we actually need to see going further back. Because this had beautiful 3 waves up, really nice exhaustion. Basically, it was a type of 2T on the intraday charts. It's a little bit tricky to see that. Actually, I want to go back even further, more days. We'll do 30, 33. And I'll show you this on the Nasdaq too. By the way, we are right at the 123.6% extension from this breakdown here. So what you can see here is that here was our measured move almost exactly, and then it goes into the 123.6% extension. So this is actually a pretty strong support zone here intraday. It's also the zone over here. So a good chance we get more of a reaction off of this here as we go a little bit further on. Okay, so what we've got here is 1, 2, 3, shift. So you can see that had that extra little flush there on that momentum reversal. So at this high, you got 1, 2, 3. You could call it a momentum reversal. You could call it a tilted 2T. Either way, we've got that momentum shifting up there. So really good zone there. There are some charts that show this even better. But what I want to do here is kind of just squish this up even further because we had a momentum reversal trying to form over here. And then it's basically going into a momentum reversal plus. But instead of just the 2 waves for that plus side, it gave 3. And so you can treat this as your first leg, and this is your second leg. This is the first correction, second correction. So you got that pattern in there. It's just it's forming it with 3 waves versus 2 because the 2-wave corrections are in here and tilted to the upside. Let's see here. I'm going to show you the Nasdaq because the Nasdaq's a little bit cleaner on that. Just gotta find out where I stuck my Nasdaq chart. Looks like I switched them all to the ES. Whoops. All right, well, we'll just change this one to the Nasdaq then. There it is. Notice that reaction is holding that zone on the 8,000 tick. Getting support off of that level here intraday. this is, I have a lot of charts there that are trying to load. Let's see, I'm gonna go look at some of our other stuff to put them on charts while we're waiting. Close down some of the stuff I got going on in the background too, that'll help.